Hi, welcome to MathemaTalks. Today, we are going to introduce ourselves to the unique idea in math. It is an integer, or we call sign numbers. Integers are the collections of whole numbers and negative numbers. So first, we need to start with whole numbers. You remember what whole numbers are, right? They are the set of numbers starting at 0 and then counting up one at a time. 1, 2, 3, all the way to infinity. And that's a lot of numbers, right? But it is only half of the story. Is it because the number line also goes in both directions? And what number are on that part of the number line? Yup, you guessed it, negative numbers.
The negative numbers are just like a mirror image of the numbers on the right side of the number line that we call the positive numbers. The only difference is that the negative number have a negative sign that looks like a minus sign in front of them, as these are the integers that are less than 0. In fact, if we wanted to, we could also write a positive sign or a plus sign in front of all positive numbers. But to save time, we just assume that if a number doesn't have any sign in front of it, then it's positive, as positive is the default sign. And the 0 is the special number that separates the positive numbers from the negative numbers, which we call the origin.
Okay, now that we know what the set of integers are, we need to learn how to compare them to other integers. Remember, in math, comparing just means saying that which of the two numbers is bigger or smaller than the other, or saying that they are equal. And to do that, we need to use the greater than, less than, or equal signs. And basically, there are just three situations.
You'll either compare two positive integers, two negative integers, or one positive and one negative integers.
You're probably already pretty good at comparing two positive integers. Like if I ask, which is bigger, 3 or 2? You know that 3 is bigger than 2 because the further right on the number line you go, the bigger the number you get.
6 is greater than 2, 50 is greater than 20, and 500 is greater than 100. It's also really easy to compare a positive integer and a negative integer because a positive number is always bigger than a negative number. Negative 6 is less than 6, negative 26 is less than 2, and negative 200 is less than 1.
But what if I ask you to compare two negative integers? Which is bigger, negative 2 or negative 3? This is where negative numbers can be a little tricky, especially if it is your first time learning about them. That's because you're so used to 3 being bigger than 2 that when you see negative 2 and negative 3, it's really tempting to think that negative 3 is bigger than negative 2, but it's not. Negative 3 is actually smaller or less than negative 2. And to help you understand why, let's look to our number line again.
Have you noticed that if you start at 0 on the number line and then you move to the right, the numbers keep getting bigger and bigger as you go along? 1 is greater than 0, 2 is greater than 1, and 3 is greater than 2, and so on. But what if we go in the opposite direction instead, which is to the left? As we go to the left, the numbers get smaller and smaller. 2 is less than 3, 1 is less than 2, and 0 is less than 1. Same way goes to negative numbers. Negative 3 is less than negative 2. Since negative 3 is on the left side of negative 2, negative 3 is actually smaller than negative 2. Negative 5 is less than negative 3, negative 20 is less than negative 11, and negative 100 is less than negative 31.
Means numbers on the right is always greater than or bigger than the numbers on the left. Here's an example that will help you understand.
Suppose there are 3 sisters who each have a different amount of money. Jisoo has 500 pesos, Rose has 0 pesos, and Jenny actually owes his mom 500 pesos. What number do we use to represent how much money she has? Yup, negative 500 pesos.
And temperature is another great example. We use 0 degrees Celsius to describe the temperature for water to freeze, but it can be colder or warmer than that. The temperature could be positive or negative, like negative 20 degrees or positive 20 degrees. So, the integers is very useful in the real world to help describe the things that can be above or below zero. Now, for further understanding the basic of integers, another concept to learn is the additive inverse, or we call the opposites, and of course, the absolute value. An additive inverse of an integer is the number with a contrasting sign. Adding additive inverses results to 0.
For positive 4, the additive inverse is negative 4 because 4 plus negative 4 is 0. For negative 5, additive inverse shall be positive 5.
While the absolute value of an integer is defined as its distance from the origin, or 0, by 2 vertical lines. It is important to note that the distance is always a non-negative quantity. It's either positive or 0.
For example, the absolute value of negative 3 is 3. The absolute value of 3 is also 3. How about the absolute value of 0? You guessed it right, 0.
Alright, so in this video, we learned what the set of integers are and how they can be described in the real world. We also learned how to compare integers as well as the opposites and the absolute value. It can be a confusing at first, so be sure to practice until you get it right. Thanks for watching MathemaTalks, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye!